Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being
being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
It's Monday, January 16th, 2023, the observation of Dr. Martin Luther King's birthday. I am Monique Presley, legal analyst and host of Make It Make Sense with Monique Presley, filling in for Roland. Roland was in Kansas giving an MLK speech at Wichita State. Here's what's coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network. We will show you what President Joe Biden had to say here in Washington, D.C., and his historic speech on Sunday at Ebenezer Baptist Church about Dr. King. A Boston statue honoring Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and his wife, Coretta, is causing controversy. We will show you what the son of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Martin III, had to say about the debates about whether the statue commemorating the Kings is done in a flattering light or not. The family of Tyre Nichols, a Tennessee man who died after a traffic stop and confrontation with the Memphis Police Department, has hired civil rights attorney Ben Crump after Memphis Police say that the officers involved in the arrest may have administrative actions. We will hear from attorney Ben Crump about the details of this troubling case and much more. It's time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, roll, roll, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now.
President Joe Biden made history on Sunday by being the first sitting U.S. president to deliver an address during a Sunday service at the historic Ebenezer Baptist Church. Ebenezer's current pastor invited President Joe Biden and Pastor Senator Raphael Warnock to come to honor Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. President Biden urged Americans to remember Dr. King's fight for justice and racial equality and how far we have come, but still how far we have to go. He focused on economic injustice, civil rights, and voting rights. Ebenezer Baptist Church is a historic church that Dr. King served as co-pastor from 1960 until his assassination in 1968. Today, President Biden spoke during the National Action Network Martin Luther King Jr. Day breakfast. Reverend Sharpton introduced the president and talked about the accomplishments of the Biden-Harris administration on social issues and economic progress. Joining me today is our panel, Dr. Omakamba Dibinga Sr., Professorial Lecturer, School of International Service, American University, Rebecca Carruthers, Vice President, Fair Elections Center, and Dr. Candace Matthews, Statewide Vice Chair, Texas Coalition of Black Democrats. Welcome, everyone.
Good evening.
Thank you. Good evening.
Thanks for having us.
I'm glad that you're here with us. I thought thought we were going to get to see some footage from what we would be talking about, but I hope that you guys got to listen to what the president was saying today. Which of you actually, and they're telling me they can play some of it. Before I talk to you about what the president said at the breakfast or at Ebenezer yesterday, why don't we take a look?
I said I was going to help HBCUs that haven't been getting the help they need. You know, the folks at HBCUs are as competent as anybody else, but guess what? They don't have the laboratories. They don't have the funding because they don't have the endowments to build the laboratories for these good, new paying jobs. And so we've delivered nearly $6 billion in funding to HBCUs to invest in next generation of black leaders. That's a record, and that's a fact, and it's not going to stop. To help close the wealth gap, the racial wealth gap, Undersecretary Fudge, she is leading the effort. We're expanding efforts to build black generational wealth like every other person has built their wealth. How'd they build it? Homes. They invested in the equity in their homes. That's how it got built. You know, if you build, in the last 25 years, if you build a housing development on one side of an interstate highway, and you built the same one on the opposite side, and one is predominantly black and the other is predominantly white, guess what? The value of the exact same home, built by the exact same builder, is more valuable on the white side of that highway than on the black side. That's a fact. So we're going to aggressively combat racial discrimination in housing, including working to restore the rule that says if a community gets a federal housing aid, it's not enough just to say it won't discriminate. It has to be meaningful, affirmative steps to overcome patterns of segregation and give everybody a fair shot that lives there. The same thing. And by the way, if you live in one of those neighborhoods and you have the same exact car I have in the other neighborhood, you pay more for your insurance than that side. No basis for it, none at all, other than you're black and I'm white. We're also working with leaders to strengthen programs to redress the negative impacts of redlining. One of the things, I was a young county councilman, that's what almost lost me an election, but I'm very proud of it, trying to take care of redlining and get rid of discrimination. We're launching a $1 billion pilot project funded by my bipartisan infrastructure law that Nancy made sure we got passed. Nance, thank you.
We have to choose a community over chaos. Are we, the people, are going to choose love over hate? These are the vital questions of our time, and the reason why I'm here as your president. I believe Dr. King's life and legacy show us the way, and we should pay attention. I really do. Dr. Martin Luther King was born in a nation where segregation was a tragic fact of life. He had every reason to believe, as others of his generation did, that history had already been written, that the division would be America's destiny. But he rejected that outcome. He heard Micah's command to do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly. And so often, when people hear about Dr. King, people think of his ministry and the movement were most about the epic struggle for civil rights and voting rights. But we do well to remember that his mission was something even deeper. It was spiritual. It was moral. The goal of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, which Dr. King led, stated it clearly and boldly, and it must be repeated again now, to redeem the soul of America. I'm not joking. To redeem the soul of America. What is the soul of America? It's easy to say, but what is the soul of America? Well, the soul is the breath, the life, the essence of who we are. The soul makes us us. The soul of America is embodied in the sacred proposition that we're all created equal in the image of God. That was the sacred proposition for which Dr. King gave his life. The sacred proposition rooted in Scripture and enshrined in the Declaration of Independence. The sacred proposition he invoked on that day in 1963 when he told my generation about his dream. A dream in which we're all entitled to be treated with my father's favorite word, dignity and respect. A dream in which we all deserve liberty and justice. And it's still the task of our time to make that dream a reality because it's not there yet. We have to choose.
We will be right back after this break to hear from our panel what they thought about the president's remarks yesterday and today. Happy MLK Day, everybody. Right back, Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
We're all impacted by the culture, whether we know it or not. From politics to music and entertainment, it's a huge part of our lives, and we're going to talk about it every day right here on The Culture with me, Faraji Muhammad, only on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
On the next Get Wealthy with me, Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, we're talking about the difficulty of being able to acquire wealth for Black Americans. My guest, Emily Flitter, is the author of The White Wall: How Big Finance is Bankrupting Black Americans.
The bad stuff that you feel when you're dealing with the financial services industry is not your fault. It's not your fault, and you don't deserve to be treated like this.
That's right here on Get Wealthy, only on Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Hi, I'm BB Winans.
Hey, I'm Donnie Simpson.
What's up? I'm Lance Gross, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Across the nation, people celebrated the incredible life of Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. In the 53 years since his 1968 assassination, we have progressed on social issues, but have lagged on economic justice. Economic injustice was one of the final issues Dr. King was striving toward and leading the movement toward when he was murdered in 1968. His speaking on the issue of progress in the northern cities versus the southern cities was a key principle of the next phase, or what he called the next phase of the mission for the movement. Dr. King also addressed the issue in his 1967 Three Evils of Society speech, stating, The problems of racial injustice and economic injustice cannot be solved without a radical redistribution of political and economic power. In the past 47 years, the racial wealth gap has increased. In 1968, the median black household had 9.4% of the wealth of the median white family. By 2016, that ratio had fallen to 8.7%. To discuss where Black Americans are in economic progress and to discuss even what this administration is doing about it, let's go to my panel. Welcome, everyone.
Hey.
Thank you. Hello. Hello.
Happy MLK Day, everybody.
Happy MLK Day to you, sister.
So first, Dr. Dibinga, any thoughts about what you heard from the president, either from the remarks that he gave today at the NAN Public Policy Forum or from the remarks yesterday, the historic sermonic remarks at the Ebenezer Baptist Church? It occurred to me listening today principally that he really was going down line by line the things that this administration has done that were in keeping with the mission of Dr. King during his life.
Yeah, most definitely. And one of the things I just have to give the president credit. I mean, he's putting his money where his mouth is. Countless times on this show, Roland Martin has taken a good 20, 30 minutes sometimes to break down what this administration has done for specifically HBCUs, because people wanted to put information out there that Trump has done more than Obama and so on and so forth. And now that Biden and his administration are speaking to this at a higher level and speaking to it directly, they need to do that. And we have to be honest, this is not the same Biden of 30, 40, 50 years ago. He said when he was inaugurated that he's not going to turn his back on the Black community. And of course, we continue to challenge him and push him in areas that we feel he needs to be pushed on. But he has come through. Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, the HBCU funds, the monies that's going out in the COVID relief and making sure that some of those disparities are being taken care of. Pete Buttigieg, Secretary of Transportation, has spoken directly to the systemic racism. You know, this past weekend, I was listening to an interview with the great Nicole Hannah-Jones, and she was talking about how she's mixed. And growing up in I believe, Waterloo, Iowa, where she would see that the Black side of her family was working class and busting their behinds to work hard, and the white side of her family were busting their behinds and working equally as hard. But what they were able to both achieve and have was just not the same. And that was when she started to realize at a young age that there were structural problems in our society that were preventing Black people from being able to get to the same level as white people. And Biden spoke on that directly. And quite honestly, lastly, let's just be clear, Dr. King also spoke on that when he talked about redistribution. He also talked about in many of his speeches about the need for reparations, even though those terms weren't used. So when other people like Republicans and other people don't know his story, only want to talk about the color of skin and content of character because that's the only quote they know, Dr. King was a revolutionary who was for Black empowerment and improvement in every way, shape, and form. And Biden's administration has been on that path. Still more to do, but they have definitely been on that path, and I feel like they should be commended for it.
Absolutely. One of the things that struck me, Rebecca, was how big of a deal it is to have the person who holds the highest office in this country and the leader of the free world saying something like in a publicly covered address that the White House is covering by live stream, saying that just by virtue of living on a Black side of a highway as opposed to a white side, your property value is lower. Your gas is higher. I mean, these were things that couldn't even be acknowledged, or they wouldn't acknowledge publicly, never mind do something about them.
Well, I'm glad that the president is speaking to those things. And as the leader of our federal government, he ought to, because it is because of the federal government that redlining took place. It is because of the federal government that Black families, the previous generation to that, weren't able to secure actual federal guaranteed funding in order to purchase homes. I think about my grandfather who fought at war, but when he came back, he wasn't able to access the VA loans to actually purchase a home. So my grandma and my mother and her 6 other siblings, they actually had to grow up in the housing projects because those things weren't available to all of the Black people in our country. So I do think it's important that Biden is speaking about that. I also hear his words about HBCUs, but I do want to remind the viewers that ever since the pandemic, 30% of all HBCU students are housing insecure. 50% of all HBCU students are food insecure. So I would like to see the federal government, specifically HUD and USDA, figure out what can we do to make sure that HBCU students have the basic necessities so they're actually able to study and to graduate and then to contribute to our economy.
No, and I mean, obviously, nobody can disagree with you about that. I think he talked about the billions that have been spent so far on HBCUs and that they intend to do more, but we have to make sure that the funds that are being spent are spent on the areas that are most important, like ones that you mentioned. Dr. Matthews, we also heard some not so veiled comments today about his thoughts about this new Congress and whether we're going to see any movement forward or whether there are going to be more and more attempts to move backward. And he said quite blankly that if anything comes across his desk like that, he's going to be vetoing it. What more should we be seeing there from him?
Well, first thing I would like to add is that, let's be clear, he was the very first sitting president to actually come and speak in Atlanta, Georgia at Martin Luther King's church. So that was really good. I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed that, how he urged the Americans, people, to remember King with his fight for justice and also equality, right? And then when he was speaking to the crowd, he was a little bit intimidated because he stated that he spoke to Parliament, he spoke to all of these other large groups of people, but he was intimidated to speak amongst Black people, and then he was humbled at the same time. So I agreed with a lot of the things that he said, however, but he did not commit to the voting rights that needs to be federal law that we need. He didn't say much about that at all. And so my deal is this. Okay, you claim you for the Black people. We put you in office. We voted you in. So now we need you to, let's get this voting rights together because you did not fully commit. We need you to fully commit. If you're talking about everything dealing with Congress, we need you to fully commit to ensure that our voting rights is protected.
What does that mean? Because he said that we needed absolutely for the John Lewis Voting Rights Act and for the Freedom to Vote Act to be passed by the legislature. But what do you mean by fully commit?
Because in his speech, he did not fully commit that that was what he was going to do. And so that's what raised the red flag.
He can't do it. I mean, the Congress has to do it, and he called on them directly in the speech today. He talked about what he could do concerning the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, what he could do about other things, but where voting is concerned, he called on them to get the job done and pass that legislation. I'm not really sure what else the administration can do there except for call on the Congress to do what it is uniquely their job to do.
Well, the only thing, like I said, is that was the only thing that rung a bell with me. But anything else, he was dead on. I was completely in correlation with him. I just really need him to really put some fire under his belt to ensure that our voting rights is protected. And that's kind of where I am with that.
Dr. Dibinga, one thing that's interesting to me that you touched upon is people always are talking about the Dr. King who had a dream. and the Dr. King who gave the speech at the Lincoln Memorial, and even my daughter earlier this week, you know, fully aware of all of the racism and the white supremacy and all of the things that are going on, started kind of teasing about the little black children and the little white children sitting next to each other at her school. Oh, the dream is realized. And we had quite the heated round about her sarcasm, but I didn't miss her point. But that is because people try to leave Dr. King in 1963 at the Lincoln Memorial. And I would dare say it's not 1963 at the Lincoln Memorial that even got him killed. What is it that we can do to bring more attention to the full breadth of Dr. King's message, the economic empowerment part of the message that is to this day unfulfilled?
You know, one of the things that I was telling my children today, you know, I have 2 teenage daughters and you know, my son is 8, and I was saying that I don't really celebrate Dr. King Day because the principles that he fought for are things that I strive to do every day, just like all of us do every single day. All of us on this panel, the whole Black Star Network, we are in our best, as imperfect as we all are, as imperfect as Dr. King was, we are on mission to doing what he fought for. So what that looks like today is supporting organizations and networks like the Black Star Network, you know, applying the 7 principles of Kwanzaa every single day. Dr. King talked about the importance of Black banks. He talked about the importance of supporting Black institutions. He talked about, as Roland Martin says on this show many times, that individually we might be poor, but collectively we are rich. How many times have I heard stats about if you pull all the wealth of Black people together, we'd be like one of the top 10 richest countries in the world? That's what it looks like. But it also looks like continually fighting for political power and making sure, I mean, some of the top 4 largest cities in this country are governed by Black mayors, right? Fighting for things like that. Dr. King said that true integration is about the sharing of power, resources, and responsibilities. It's not just about saying that we're able to live into this particular neighborhood or we can get that job. And so that's also what it looks like today. And lastly, it looks like fighting for real justice and equality. People have their favorite Dr. King quotations after January 6th and Trump's administration. My favorite Dr. King quotation is, "You can't regulate morality, but you can legislate behavior." Fight for justice. Fight for making sure that people who break the law and try to overthrow this country are incarcerated, and fighting to make sure that people who stand in our way every single day no longer have the right to do that. Those are the three ways we honor Dr. King: in the economic sense that I talked about, in this political sense, and making sure that we're fighting every single day for that justice. And lastly, I just want to say, Martin Luther King III said that his daughter is about to be in 6th grade or something like that in Virginia, and they can't teach about Dr. King because of this fake critical race theory activism. So the other part I need to add is making sure that we're fighting in our schools every single day to make sure that the truth is told, because every single day that we're complacent is another day that they are winning. And in too many instances, they are winning because we've let our guard down.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And certainly Dr. King gave the ultimate sacrifice of his life in furtherance of the cause for us all, for us even to have the opportunity that we have right now. I'm going to go to a break, and then when we get back, we'll hear what Dr. King thought about economic justice in his own words.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
as an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol. We've seen
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
We're all impacted by the culture, whether we know it or not. From politics to music and entertainment, it's a huge part of our lives, and we're going to talk about it every day right here on The Culture with me, Faraji Muhammad, only on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Teresa Griffin.
Hi, my name is LaToya Luckett, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Absolutely necessary. The other thing is that America freed the slaves in 1863 through the Emancipation Proclamation of Abraham Lincoln, but gave the slaves no land or nothing in reality, and as a matter of fact, to get started on. At the same time, America was giving away millions of acres of land in the West and the Midwest, which meant that there was a willingness to give the white peasants from Europe an economic base. And yet it refused to give its black peasants from Africa, who came here involuntarily in chains and had worked free for 244 years, any kind of economic base. And so emancipation for the Negro was really freedom to hunger. It was freedom to the winds and rains of heaven. It was freedom without food to eat or land to cultivate, and therefore it was freedom and famine at the same time. And when white Americans tell the Negro to lift himself by his own bootstraps, they don't look over the legacy of slavery and segregation. I believe we ought to do all we can and seek to lift ourselves by our own bootstraps, but it's a cruel jest to say to a bootless man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps. And many Negroes, by the thousands and millions, have been left bootless as a result of all of these years of oppression and as a result of a society that deliberately made his color a stigma and something worthless and degrading.
Apart from wanting to live better, which all of us want to do, to raise one's children in a better way, to be better, does the Negro in America know what he wants to be?
I'm convinced that almost every Negro in this country, other than those who have been so scarred by the system that they've become pathological in the process, and we all have to battle with pathology. Nobody really knows what it means to be a Negro unless one can really experience it. And I know we all have to battle with this constant drain of a feeling of nobodiness. But in spite of this, I think the vast majority of Negroes in this country know that they want to be people, they want to be men, they want equality, period. It just boils down to that. And we haven't been able to be people. We haven't been men because of all of the conditions that we've lived with and the syndrome of deprivation surrounding conditions, whether it's in housing, in the economic area, or in schools, or in the vicious credit practices that we face in the ghetto, and all of the problems of closed doors and constant defeats. But in spite of all this, I think we all know, basically, that we want to be men. We want to be persons judged not on the basis of the color of our skin, but on the basis of the content of our character.
But you know that many young Negroes don't want anything.
This interview, this portion of an interview that we were able to see, I would encourage everyone to Google it, look it up, and find the 1967 NBC interview that was done of Dr. King. It's one of very few that were actually in color, and there's so much that is important that is discussed in there that I will try to weave through as we talk about some other issues tonight. But for now, one of the things that strikes me, Rebecca, is that Dr. King is saying, sure, tell us to pull up by our bootstraps if we have boots and if they have straps. And he's saying that in 1967, but the same can be said in 2023.
Yeah, absolutely. Many things haven't changed. And what's so interesting watching all of these people support Dr. King today, and these are the same people who would not have supported him in 1968, right before he was killed. Even understanding that his popularity rating was like one of the lowest popularity or approval of any public figure at the time. He became very radical, and it was a good thing because for Black Americans to be able to succeed in this country, for Black Americans to be able to actually build up our communities, to determine our own futures, it is going to take some level of radicalism. It also is going to take some reparations. It's going to take financial injections. It's going to take financial literacy. A lot of times we hear people saying that Black folks aren't as unified as other communities and we don't support Black-owned businesses, but those things simply aren't true. We don't have the infrastructure like other communities have for our dollars to stay in the Black community longer than 15 minutes, or to double or triple or quadruple or flip over 7 times the way it does in some Latinx and some white communities. And so we need all of these things, and we need champions who are willing to have those root cause conversations to acknowledge that we can't pull ourselves up by the bootstraps if we're not wearing boots. So it's very poignant, and the rest of that interview is so remarkable.
Well, I agree with you. And Dr. Matthews, one of the things, which is why I keep saying to people, today it was the only parts of his speech that I posted because so many people, as I was saying to Dr. Dibinga, try to leave Dr. King in 1963 having a dream at the Lincoln Memorial. And he says in another part of this interview that when he looked back on that, when he had time to reflect upon it, that it was superficial in and of itself, that there had to be a solemn reality to go with the dream. Do you think that even in our own community, we recognize the breadth of what Dr. King ultimately was trying to move us toward in the mission?
Well, I tell you what we learned in grade school, what we learned as far as universities and things of that such, I can say yes, but I was a little bit disgruntled when I seen a social media post where now we have people that are making posts of Martin Luther King having him with a blunt in his mouth. They have Martin Luther King with a twerk session. They have the Martin Luther King holiday where it is not a sacred holiday that we were raised with when we were coming up. So it's like we have to get these millennials, we have to get them kind of, by the coattail and be like, hey, this is a historical mark for us in the United States as Black people. Martin Luther King should not have a blunt in his mouth. Martin Luther King should not have a twerk session for MLK Day. And I was very upset about that.
Dr. Dibinga, you work with young people all the time. What are your thoughts?
I don't know if you heard me saying damn right like the whole time, because many of us have not done the best job in making sure that the legacies of our leaders and our people are preserved. I was listening to Dr. Malveaux, normally on the Monday panel with us, who was on the Sunday show with Jonathan Capehart on MSNBC yesterday. And one of the things she was saying was that she didn't realize that so many young people didn't know that Stevie Wonder's Happy Birthday song was for Dr. King. They just saw it as the Black birthday song. right? And so that's just a simple example along with what Dr. Matthews was saying. And this is why some of the challenges many of us had with Kanye, because many of us said that before Kanye was anti-Jew, he was anti-Black. And he kept getting, in my opinion, got continual passes for the things he was saying about the Black community. And many of our entertainers, we give them passes for things that they say about us. And my hope is that we'll finally get to this point where we will start to do what Dr. Matthews is talking about, do what the Black Star Network does on a regular basis, what all of us do here on a regular basis, and start to magnify it tenfold, 100-fold, and really go back and grab our children and make sure, and some of our adults, to keep it real, to make sure they understand the legacy. Because again, like I said in the last segment, when we let our guard down, we are losing, because in lieu of us not doing what we're supposed to do, these school systems are actively removing Dr. King and other leaders and activists and movements and stories from the curricula, from the history books. And we already knew that we weren't getting enough as it is. One of the reasons I don't watch mainstream media on Dr. King's holiday is because I'm reminded of how they just taught me as how he was this pacifist, turn the other cheek type of guy, when he was one of the most revolutionary, and it turned me off to him when I was growing up as a kid. Then I got to learning from people like us, our stories, hearing people like Harry Belafonte talk about him, and realizing that he was one of the most revolutionary people in the history of the planet, and learning stories about how Dr. King talked about how he feared he integrated his people into a burning house. And so, yes, our young people don't have the message. We can't blame the larger community anymore. It is our fault that we soil on some of the legacies of our people, and we don't do enough to pass it on. We have to do more.
Right, and I guess that would be my point. I don't know about grabbing their coattails. I don't know about grabbing their throats. I don't know about grabbing them, period. I know about sitting down in community and teaching them. I know that we need to be sharing with them. I understand the history of civil rights because my grandparents took time to teach it. My parents took time to share the lessons. So what I feel about voting, what I feel about community, what I feel about civil rights, it all was because in our family nuclear community and in our larger community, part of the responsibility of adulting for them was making sure that we knew. And so I feel, if anything, it's like my generation that has a responsibility to ensure that we are doing the same thing. And so when I look at people who don't understand it, I know they weren't taught it, because anytime that you get exposure to truth, then the truth magnifies, right? But so that is my hope, that for the ones, I'm not mad at anybody who doesn't get it, because to me, that's on me. The collective we, us, we got to do better. And we'll do better even in this show. When we come back, we're going to take another break, get the bills paid, and after that, we will be back with more on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Don't go anywhere.
On the next Get Wealthy with me, Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, we're talking about the difficulty of being able to acquire wealth for Black Americans. My guest, Emily Flitter, is the author of The White Wall: How Big Finance is Bankrupting Black America.
The bad stuff that you feel when you're dealing with the financial services industry is not your fault. It's not your fault, and you don't deserve to be treated like this.
That's right here on Get Wealthy, only on Black Star Network.
On the next A Balanced Life with me, Dr. Jackie, listen to this. Good fortune happens when opportunity meets planning. In other words, success is no accident. Thomas Edison said that, and it's such a great message as we enter into this new year. Planning for success and balance in 2023, planning for it, and then how to live it.
I'm always working towards those goals. I'm always moving in that direction. And if something gets me off track for the goal, I hurry up and determine, oh, wait, you're off track. Get back over here on your track of what you're supposed to be doing, and I continue to work to those goals.
That's next on A Balanced Life with me, Dr. Jackie, here at Black Star Network.
My name is Charlie Wilson.
Hi, I'm Sally Richardson-Whitfield.
And I'm Dodger Whitfield.
Hey everybody, this is your man Fred Hammond, and you're watching Roland Martin, my man, Unfiltered.
A Boston statue honoring Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and his wife, Coretta Scott King, has sparked a debate about whether the commemoration of the Kings is flattering or not. The Embrace statue, as it is called, created by Hank Willis Thomas, was unveiled to the public on Saturday, where Dr. King gave a speech on April 23rd, 1965. It depicts the moment Dr. King hugged his wife after winning the Nobel Peace Prize in 1964. People online are now debating if the piece was the most appropriate looking image, and of course, like anything else, with people adding their own commentary. Martin Luther King III, Dr. King's son, was on CNN, and this is what he's had to say about the sculpture dedicated
moments after
to his
Dr. King
parents.
was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize.
I've got to ask you about something that was unveiled this week, and there's a monument called the Embrace that symbolizes a hug that your father and mother shared after he won the 1964 Nobel Peace Prize. It was unveiled in Boston just last week. There's been some controversy around it. You know, what did you think when you saw it? What do you think of it?
Well, first of all, to me, I was certainly moved by the overwhelmingness, the large capacity of this sculpture. And one of the things our daughter said was, "Look, it represents love 360." You know, coming from a 14-year-old's perspective. People have, it's subjective. Everyone has their opinions, but opinions are like butts. Everybody's got one. But my issue is, I think that's a huge representation of bringing people together. It's called Embrace. And I think the artist did a great job. I'm satisfied. Yeah, it didn't have my mom and dad's images, but it represents something that brings people together. And in this time of day and age, when there's so much division, we need symbols that talk about bringing us together. It's personal for me, because had my mom and dad not met in Boston, maybe I wouldn't be here. So I'm grateful, number one, that it talks about the love story. And so people will be debating about it for a long time, but for years. And then the other thing, final thing I'll say is, it also represents mom and dad. Many monuments are done just around dad, but it represents the kind of relationship they had working together, and they were a partnership.
I've got to ask you about something.
Rebecca, why are people so petty?
You know, I would have liked to see the images of Dr. King and Mrs. King, because I would have really loved to see Black love at that scale. It would have been something, I think, that would have taken it to the next level. But overall, the Embrace is about love. It's about two people who are rooted together, who were going through similar things. She was there for him, there with him. And she was one of the few people on the planet who understood what he was going through, what he was fighting for, what his blood, sweat, and tears were all about. So I do like the idea of it, but I would have loved to see a little bit more of that Black love imagery.
Right, and I get that, but I mean, it's art, you know, and it's commissioned and it's through the view of the artist. Dr. Dominga, any thoughts?
I agree with Rebecca, but yeah, absolutely. I see it on both sides. I mean, it's definitely art. It's definitely beautiful. And I do feel like, particularly, no one fought harder for us to have Dr. King's holiday than Coretta Scott King. And so I definitely would have been happy to see. I want to see more Black women's faces on statues and Black men's faces on statues. But so it's not a either or for me, or it's like a both and, right? I'm happy that it's there. Boston's my hometown, so I really appreciate what they're doing to honor Dr. King and Coretta Scott King. I'm very interested. Next time I go up there, I would love to see what the plaque says. You know, I hope people are stopping to read it. But I'm with you as well. It's like we need to do as much possible to honor our ancestors and what they have done. And so we can go, I feel like we can have a conversation. Even Martin Luther King III said that, you know, it would have been nice to see. But at the end of the day, when it comes to how we're honored in terms of picturesque representations, it's slim pickings, you know? So I'm glad that it's there overall. And I think that we can wish for something, sort of like Rebecca was saying, but in a way that goes to what you're saying, Monique, that's not petty and degrading. Why is that up there? Oh, that's just, and then people are trying to sexualize it and turn it into like like a thigh and all of this other type of stuff. That just goes to what Dr. Matthews was saying in the last segment. It's just disrespectful. And, you could want a little bit more, but we should be happy that Black people are being honored in the way that they are, particularly in one of the cities that was one of the most racist during the Civil Rights Movement before and kind of since.
Right, and Dr. Matthews, to your earlier point, one of the things that struck me that I actually loved about this being used to commemorate the winning of the Nobel Prize is that Dr. King himself, in winning, said that it was not a win just for him. It was a win for the movement. He dispersed the money to all different parts of the movement, and he certainly didn't do anything in terms of winning without his mate. And I think that partnership is that love partnership, as Martin III said, is what is on display here. What are your thoughts?
Well, I'm going to tell you what we said here in Texas. That ain't nothing but a bunch of bullshit, because I got to keep it real on this. It needed to have the exact replica of Martin Luther King and his wife, because we need more Black statues. We need more images of Black transformation. And that's not what I'm seeing here. And I really don't like it at all. Because
why don't we pay for them then? I mean, if we need more of them, because I've heard, I see people saying it, and we've had an agreement on the panel that we would like to see more Black women, see more Black men and women in love. But I mean, the dollars are in our community to be able to get that done. So why don't we?
Well, I don't have an issue with that, because money is not an issue with me. But my issue is this.
Well, no, I'm saying to commission the artwork and to do the statues like the way everybody came together for the statue that's here in D.C.
I agree with that. But my deal is this again. I agree with the message that they're trying to do, but I don't agree with them not putting the exact replica of Martin Luther King and his wife, because what that shows, that is the very essence of the Black community. That is the very essence with the Black man and the Black woman. And that's what needs to be shown. And that's what I agree with, and I'm sticking to it. Because like I said, in Texas, we said there's nothing but a bunch of bullshit. They need to have both of them on there.
Okay. Well, as Roland always says, and I will echo, we are responsible. We have to pay for our own freedom. And so if we want to see more of something, then I know that the same money that's in the community that we get everything else done with, we can get this done with. But for now, we're going to a break. And when we come back, there will be more Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Waxstar Network.
Most people think that these television shows that tell stories about who we are as Black men, and then they paint these monolithic portraits of us. They think that they're being painted by white people. And I gotta tell you, there are a whole bunch of Black folk that are the creators, the head writers, the directors of all of these shows, and that are still painting us as monoliths. The people don't really want to have this conversation.
No, they don't. When you talk about Blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland@RolandSMartin.com.
Hello, everyone. It's
Kiara Sheard.
Hey, I'm Taj.
I'm Coco.
And I'm Lily.
And we're SWV.
What's up, y'all? It's Ryan Destiny, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Iyanna McGill left for her school on Friday, December 16, 2022 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and never returned home. The 15-year-old is 5'3" tall, weighs 190 pounds, with brown eyes and black braided hair. Iyanna was last seen wearing a red Tommy Hilfiger jacket, black jeans, a black hoodie, and a black head wrap. She also has a birthmark under her left eye. Anyone with information on Iyanna McGill should call the Philadelphia, Pennsylvania Police Department at 215-686-3183. It's been discovered a Louisiana sheriff has been unlawfully destroying its deputies' disciplinary records for at least 10 years. The finding comes at a time when Jefferson Parish Sheriff's Office is facing multiple lawsuits involving allegations of, you guessed it, excessive force, racial discrimination, and wrongful death at the hands of deputies. Attorneys say Sheriff Joe Lupinto failed to discipline deputies and has not been transparent regarding releasing disciplinary action records. The Jefferson Parish Sheriff's Office was recently the subject of a year-long investigation by ProPublica and WWNO/WRKF. The investigation found that the Jefferson Parish Sheriff's Office rarely sustains complaints against its deputies. From 2017 to mid-2020, the Sheriff's Office only had one misconduct complaint against a deputy. A second Arizona grand jury declines to indict a former Tucson police officer who shot and killed a shoplifting suspect in a motorized wheelchair. Ryan Remington was indicted on manslaughter charges back in August after he shot and killed 61-year-old Richard Lee Richards in a Walmart parking lot. Police say Richards had stolen a toolbox and had a knife. Remington was working off duty as a security guard at the time. Defense attorneys challenged the indictment, arguing prosecutors presented misleading statements to the first grand jury. A judge granted their request to bring the case to a grand jury for a second time, who opted not to indict him. A city police officer caught on video smacking a teenager in the back of the head with his service weapon in 2019 has been fired. Finally, a right outcome. Police Chief Roderick Porter confirmed that Officer Gianni Capozziello, an officer for 6 years, was terminated from the department. The chief said the decision to fire him was made due to a September 29, 2022 disciplinary hearing. Capozziello had initially been suspended for 20 days by then acting Chief Rebecca Garcia in connection with the incident for violating the use of the department's rule against the use of excessive force. We're going to take a quick break and be right back. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star
On On the next A Balanced Life with me, Dr. Jackie, listen to this. Good fortune happens when opportunity meets planning. In other words, success is no accident. Thomas Edison said that, and it's such a great message as we enter into this new year. Planning for success and balance in 2023, planning for it, and then how to live it.
I'm always working towards those goals. I'm always moving in that direction. And if something get me off track for the goal, I hurry up and determine, oh, wait, you're off track. Get back over here on your track of what you're supposed to be doing, and I continue to work to those goals.
That's next on A Balanced Life with me, Dr. Jackie, here at Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Eric Nolan.
I'm Shantae Moore.
Hi, my name is Latoya Luckett, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
A video is going viral on TikTok of a Virginia driver exposing a cop's record of racial profiling. Charlotte Carter calls out a Chesterfield, Virginia officer she refers to as Mr. Scott for ticketing mostly Black people while on duty. The October Community Police Act report confirms that Black and Latino people made up over 40% of all drivers stopped. Carter says she was pulled over as an act of intimidation for videos she posted to social media discussing alleged corruption inside local law enforcement. The Chesterfield Police Department dismissed Carter's claims, saying she has been arrested numerous times and is using the videos for attention. I want to go here back to my panel just about police misconduct generally, really, and the latest incidents that we just heard about, because in the video, yep, I'm coming back to the Dr. King video later on in the interview, he discusses how when you make a person a thing, when there is thingification of people, then it is easier to mistreat them, that it is hard to justify your wrongdoing. So you have to either turn the wrong thing into a right, or you have to make the people, the humans involved, not people at all, but chattel and things. And that the thingification of Black people is what has led to many things, one of which he included was police misconduct. Dr. Debinga, this to me seems exactly right. And every time we discuss this on Roland's show, I talk about the dehumanization of Black people and how, as long as police are out there not seeing people as people, it will continue. We can do all of the know what to do, how to know your rights, stay alive, don't look at them, look forward, whatever, and none of that'll work if the people who are out there with the guns and the badges do not see our humanity.
I'm so glad you brought up the thingification aspect of the speech, because that was also one of the most impassioned part of the speech. I share it with my classes. I'm intercultural communication, and that is it's exactly true. And he also talked about, as we saw in the part that you did play, he talked about the Black skin itself being stigmatized. And someone said on Twitter once, whenever your skin is viewed as a weapon, you're never disarmed. And so when you add that with thingification, people constantly looking at us as objects, it makes it easier to have stories like this happen. It makes it easier to have stories of Black people who are unarmed, being shot, being murdered, and making advertisements on nightly news. We got the video, Laquan McDonald at 6 p.m. We got the video, Sandra Bland. Like they promote these things, but they don't do that for other communities, because when they see us, they don't see us as human beings. And so when you look at, but when we talk about it, we're talking about these situations because they're our family members. And many of us have lived through it in some way, shape, or form, either through direct experience, experience with our own family, or experiences in our community. So it's a different type of appreciation or respect. And I will also say that going to the segments that you've shown, going back to the last break about the Louisiana sheriff not reporting statistics, we have to also understand that we live in a society where 88%, according to the FBI, of police departments across the country do not report hate crimes. And it's been declining for about 3 years. So really, at the end of the day, what's happening with that Louisiana sheriff is happening all across the country, where they're getting rid of information or failing to report it because they don't see what's happening to us as well as other communities as important. And that's why we have to keep fighting for the George Floyd Police Act, because some of the things that are in that bill would remedy some of the things that are happening as it relates to police being fired and not being able to go down the street and get hired again, making sure that the proper statistics are being kept across these departments, and making sure that when officers like that Louisiana sheriff are doing what they're doing, they are also penalized. Like Dr. King said, you can't regulate morality, but you can legislate behavior. They need to be fired, locked up.
I have actually a follow-up question with you about that, Dr. Dibinga, because as one thing that I'm proud of, I'm sure I've mentioned when we've been on the show together before, is you taught my children. So I have confidence in what you can share with us. But I am concerned when you were talking about the videos, right, and how we're seeing them and we're seeing us killed, and it's like a game, it's like sport. I am concerned that the very thing that many in civil rights circles and in movement circles believe is necessary and are probably correct is necessary for the masses to actually believe something. It's that same thing now that is traumatizing us and further dehumanizing us, even in our own communities. What solutions can you offer for that?
Well, one of the things we have to understand is that this is part of America's history. I mean, this is a country that actively mailed postcards of lynchings, and they were sent to people having these picnics at these lynchings that people brought their children to, and they would send them out on postcards that were mailed by the United States Postal Service to different places, that this was just a regular thing to do, like you're going to a parade for a team that just won a championship or something. What we have to do is we have to actively fight for these videos and things to not be shown on loop. You can go on YouTube right now and make a playlist of unarmed shootings of Black people. And we have to call for that. And again, Dr. Matthews is just so on point on this when she talked about Dr. King with a blunt. We also have to start demanding it in our own spaces. To World Star and all of these places not putting up these videos, we have to start as we demand that they treat us with more dignity in how they show these videos, we have to start doing it ourselves. Because remember a couple of years ago, and I believe in Virginia, where a white woman got killed. She was broadcasting live on television, and every news station said, out of respect to our family, out of respect to her family, we're not going to show the killing. But the man who shot her was a Black man, and after he killed himself, they showed a picture of him being placed into the ambulance. So there's a double standard as it relates to the seeing of Black death. We have to start demanding that. At the end of the day, this is re-traumatizing our community. Harvard and other places have done research that whenever these videos are shown, there's a community effect of trauma. I talk about this in my upcoming book, Lies About Black People, as well. If we want to get rid of the thingification that Dr. King talked about, then we have to demand that the media stop thingifying us.
Yeah, and Rebecca, I hear and I echo everything that Dr. Dibinga is saying, but the other thing that I know is true, that I'm sure one of our guests, if he was allowed to talk about it, Dr. Ben Crump, Attorney Ben Crump, would say is if there had been no video where George Floyd was concerned, nobody would have believed it. So how do we ride the ride in the middle, Rebecca?
So there's just so much to unpack here. I mean, there's everything for, I hear, I do understand about community trauma, and that adds on to all the other trauma that we have as a Black community, regardless at what point in American history we came to this country. We have a lot of trauma, right? But if we don't have those videos, how do we show the world what's happening? When I think about the civil rights movement, if it wasn't for those videos, if it wasn't for those cameras seeing those police dogs attacking those young people, those students, if those images weren't there, then the story would not have been believed. Because as Black people, we share our truths. When we talk about things that we're experiencing individually or collectively, we're simply not believed. So we do need to show so people understand this is what's happening. We do need to have a historical record. I do want to pivot slightly. When I think about we had a Democratic Congress, why wasn't this a priority for this to be passed, especially because there was some bipartisan support to get the George Floyd policing bill passed? So that's one thing. The other thing is, as an attorney, I think about what this administration can do even without Congress. I think about Department of Justice, and I'm thinking about the consent decrees that can happen, especially in these particular counties like Jefferson Parish in Louisiana, or these other areas where we're seeing that law enforcement are abusing their power. And then finally, we always hear, oh, it's just a few bad apples. At some point, we have to acknowledge that even the concept of policing in America isn't rooted in public safety. Even the term protect and serve isn't protect and serve the community, it's protect and serve the Constitution, protect and serve the state. So at some point, we have to acknowledge that the state, that government, that our institutions are anti-Black, and that's what we see that's being carried out by, unfortunately, many law enforcement agencies across the country.
Well, I will fill in a blank for you directly and tell you where the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act is concerned. The bill that Congress passed and quickly stalled and died in the Senate due to one senator, Tim Scott, who promised that he would take it over the finish line and did the exact opposite. But that doesn't mean that it can't happen in the future. I'm just not holding my breath. Dr. Matthews, what are your thoughts?
Well, you know, in Texas, we even tried to do legislation for the George Floyd Act in Texas. And so, you know, Texas and Louisiana is like right next door to each other. So I've actually been to Jefferson Parish. I already know how they rock down now. And how they rock, it is completely just out of the scope. One thing is that the governor of Louisiana, because what that sheriff done is against the law. When he's turning around and he's forging and tampering with that data. The governor of Louisiana needs to do an executive order and remove him as sheriff and put in a temporary sheriff until it's time for that election. Now, when we were looking into the Policing Act, when we were doing legislation during last session before our legislators flew to Washington, D.C., we were looking at what the issue were is that, one, you have law enforcement officers that are going from one agency to the next. This is what happens when you recycle rogue cops. Okay, it needs to be a system in place like we put in that legislation where it has to have state departments have to report police misconduct to the FBI, and then also have the local police agencies to have access to it so they can look and see what actual bad apples that they have. But when you don't have this in place, this is why we have the recycle of rogue cops and actually white supremacists that hides behind the police badge. In order for us to get
absolutely. And they cross jurisdictions and they kill in the next jurisdiction. And we've watched it happen time and time again.
But you know what? They do that in Texas all over the place. Because I'm gonna give you one prime example, and I'm gonna share the.
You can give it to me after the break. We got to go to a break, and I got to read one story real quick. 11 election deniers will serve on top House committees. The new committee chairs include Representative Jim Jordan to serve as chair of the Judiciary Committee. God help us. Representative Mike Rogers, the new Armed Services Committee chair, and Representative Mark Green, who will now be the chair of the Committee on Homeland Security. All voted not to certify the 2020 election results after facing the January 6th insurrection by Trump supporters seeking to top the certification process. These appointments carry major implications because Representative Jordan played a significant role in President Trump's effort to overturn the election by calling Trump to discuss ways to postpone the certification and allegedly offering advice to Mark Meadows about having former Vice President Pence throw out electoral votes. Yes, y'all, the committees are being headed by the heads of the insurrectionists. We're going to go to a quick break. We'll be back with more on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
Next on the Black Table with me, Greg Carr. Our legal roundtable is back in session as we look at yet another potential landmark case being considered by the United States Supreme Court. This one is called 303 Creative versus Alennis and may be the most important and far-reaching First Amendment, that is freedom of speech, case of our time. It could, depending on how the court rules, open the door for a return of Jim Crow segregation laws. It's true.
If you say we can discriminate against one, you're saying we can discriminate against all.
That's on the next Black Table. Don't miss it. Right here on the Black Star Network.
On the next Get Wealthy with me, Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, we're talking about the difficulty of being able to acquire wealth for Black Americans. My guest, Emily Flitter, is the author of The White Wall: How Big Finance is Bankrupting Black America.
The bad stuff that you feel when you're dealing with the financial services industry is not your fault. It's not your fault, and you don't deserve to be treated like this.
That's right here on Get Wealthy, only on Black Star Network.
How y'all doing? It's your favorite funny girl, Amanda Seals.
Hi, I'm Anthony Brown from Anthony Brown and Group Therapy.
What up, Lana Well, and you are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
This week, the U.S. will hit its debt limit again if congressional lawmakers don't take steps to avoid it. Thursday is the deadline for Congress to reach its statutory debt limit. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen wrote a letter to House Speaker Kevin McCarthy. I feel like I'm just going to vomit a little bit in my mouth saying that, to suspend or increase the debt limit. In the letter, Yellen stated that it's, quote, critical that Congress act in a timely manner to increase or suspend the debt limit. A default on Treasury bonds would cause the U.S. economy to slide into another Great Recession. If the U.S. defaults, Moody's is projecting a 4% decline in gross domestic product and the loss of nearly 6 million jobs. I want to go to my panel on this. Listen, Dr. Dubinga, people might be so exhausted that they don't remember the last time we had these games being played was when this party was in office playing these games. And so now we've had in the past 2 years record growth, decrease in debt by what the president said today, 600 billion. I'm not sure on the exact number that's decreased overall. But right now, when you go abroad, the dollar is worth more than the euro. When's the last time we can remember that happening? And it looks like they want to mess it all up for the sake of gamesmanship, for the sake of whatever it is, because they have no agenda of their own, and put us right back where we were before, and then come election time, say the Democrats did it.
Absolutely. This is why I said that we can't have a 2-year anniversary, or some people, should have been termed commemoration of the insurrection, because the insurrection is ongoing. And as you said before we went into the break, 11 people who denied the election are now running these committees right now. And the Republican Party is being led by one person who's on alleged sex trafficking, Matt Gaetz, another person who says QAnon people are her people, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and believes in Jewish space lasers, and George Santos, if that's his real name, who from everything from stealing out his mama's purse as an adult to lying about every other aspect of his life. These are the representatives of the party, and they are not leaders. They are anarchists. They want to destroy this country. They fought for weeks or days to find out who's going to be the Speaker of the House, just to find out who's going to have the right to go against Hunter Biden, where they had no words for what Jared Kushner was doing while he was actually in the White House. Hunter Biden never served a day in his life in the executive office. And we have to understand that at the end of the day, a lot of this happened because many of us got comfortable, but also because the Republicans have been more politically savvy in what they were doing. I know Rebecca can speak to this stuff a lot better than I can, but one of the reasons they have the majority is not because of strong leadership and they were just so politically, it's redistricting in places like New York and Florida at the end of the day, and they keep beating Democrats at their game on some levels, and the Democrats can't keep having this mentality, well, we'll just keep fighting, no matter what they do, we'll just re-educate the people, we'll just get out there and fight. Because I honestly believe that if Roe wasn't overturned, we probably would have lost the Senate as well. And so this is a group that is committed to destroying everything that Biden has done in his past 2 years. But if we get out and speak, if the people lead, the leaders will follow. You got people, some Republicans in George Santos's district who are joining the fights for him to resign. We have to keep working together for that beloved community that Dr. King talked about. And we do have the ability to fight them and challenge them and win if we don't get complacent.
You, Rebecca, so I'm coming right to you. Hopefully give us some solutions, because one thing I always hear my sister friend Latasha Brown say is that we cannot out-organize suppression. We cannot out-organize oppression. And so when we look at it, people are saying, keep working, keep working, keep working. Well, they keep cheating, keep cheating, keep cheating. That is not the path forward. What's the path?
Well, this is what I want to say. So it took Speaker McCarthy 15 rounds. We don't know all of the deals that he had to cut. We don't know all the promises he had to make. So this week, we really need to be paying attention. We need to see who he owes what to for all those votes that he finally got after midnight the other Friday in order to become the speaker. So I think we actually should take notes. We should watch what's going to go on, because this is going to let us know what's going to happen legislatively for the next 18 months and figure out where exactly the divisions in the Republican caucus is, where the fissures are. Because remember, any one of those people, according to this rules package, can do basically like a vote of no confidence, or they actually have a vote to determine if they want to keep McCarthy as the speaker. So I think those on the progressive side need to sit back, watch what happens, because at the end of the day, are we actually going to default? No. There's going to be a deal that's going to be cut. There's going to be a deal that's made. But finally, thinking about something that Latasha Brown talks about, we also have to understand on the Democratic side that, quite frankly, we could have held on, the Democrats could have held on to the House. Specifically, when we think about the New York Democrats getting a little bit too cute with how they were doing the redistricting, and they kind of messed up the maps and they handed it to the Republicans. And then the court kicked it back to them. Then they had to redo it. It's like 3 or 4 different passes. If those things didn't happen, if we didn't have the D-Trip chair actually decide that he was going to go into a minority-held district and push that person out, so that person could not have, so that person potentially would have beat Sean in the primary. If all those things didn't happen, the makeup of the House will look markedly different, and it could actually be just a bare Democratic majority there. So we can't out-organize this, but we do have to strategize. We do have to be smart, but we also have to hold these folks accountable. We also have to hold the Democratic Party accountable. We have to hold the Republican Party accountable.
You are so right, because every one of those that you named were unforced errors, and I'm sure that there are more of those that we could discuss. What can we be doing on the state level, Dr. Matthews, because it is obvious that we should expect zero from this Senate?
Well, I'm going to tell you like this. I'm about sick of all them over there. And I just got to be real about it. So in order for us to do something, we need to have a Black collective where we have an actual Black agenda, and that we have to stand fast, and we have to have accountability, which breeds responsibility. Therefore, it is our responsibility to ensure that we have a seat at the table. Because when you don't have a seat at the table, then you're on the menu. So let's just be clear. The Republicans are doing this as a strategy, okay? Because you have people who actually was with January the 6th, and you have them in leadership positions. So you know what this is called? It's called you say a lot in what you do, but you don't say. And that is actually what they're showing us. So we have to galvanize, we have to strategize, and we have to have a Black collective in every state of the union. Because in Texas has the most African Americans in the state of the union. And that's basically what we're doing right now, so we can try to fix this foolishness that they got going on in our state with Mr. Hot Wheels, and then on top of that, on Capitol Hill.
Oh, you got me with that one, Dr. Matthews. I'm a Texas girl. I don't know how many people got the reference, and I am not repeating it. University of Alabama basketball player Darius Miles is facing capital murder charges following a shooting near the school's Tuscaloosa campus. Very sadly, Jamia Harris was shot and killed on Sunday. Miles and Michael Lynn Davis allegedly shot into a car Jamia was riding in. Miles says he's innocent in a statement released by his attorneys, which says Darius Miles and his family are heartbroken tonight over the death of Jamia Jonee Harris. While Darius has been accused of being involved with this tragedy, he maintains his innocence and looks forward to his day in court. I don't know if anybody on the panel has any additional information about this case. Dr. Dibinga, have you heard anything?
I have not, and we really need to watch how this plays out, because this is disturbing on so many levels, and I really hope we get to the bottom of this ASAP. This sister lost her life, and wow. No, I wish I had more information, but I'm definitely going to be following it.
Anything? I have one lawyer on the panel. Rebecca, got anything for us?
So I did read a report earlier today that the team had placed the football player on leave. I think it was like December 28th. And they said that it wasn't performance related and that it wasn't injury related. They just said that he wouldn't be with the team at this time. So it's interesting. It makes me think that there's been something that's been going on with him for a while. And then obviously after he was charged, the team immediately said that they cut ties with him and he's no longer a part of the team. But I'm curious if the University of Alabama can release what led them to actually put him on leave in December, and if there was a history, if there were other things that was going on with that young man. But it's a sad story all around.
Right, and you know, he's a basketball player. Just want to clarify, but you know, I don't trust Alabama. I don't trust Alabama investigations and Black folks, and I'm concerned about ties being cut for an accusation. Maybe it's just a criminal defense lawyer in me, but I could understand why he would be on leave. I can't understand why he would be removed unless the team has significantly more information than we are being told. But it's certainly a story that we will have to keep our eyes and ears on. Dr. Matthews, any thoughts?
Only thing that I can say is everybody deserves the right to have due process. So I have to go and look into this because it appears that it's some real bullshiggity that's going on around here. And I'm like you, my sister. I don't trust nothing they have going on in Alabama. So I'm going to have to go ahead and get my pen and dig into this.
Absolutely. And it's hard because especially when it's a situation like this, a young woman has lost her life in our community and 2 young men of our community are charged. So many times people feel the need to get on one side or another and quickly. And I always sit in the seat of, but wait, if they did what they're accused of doing, let justice prevail. If they didn't, let justice prevail. And so I just hope that everyone will remain calm enough and stick with facts as facts come out so that we can get to the bottom of this. It is time for another break, and afterward we will be back with more of Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches!
I'm real revolutionary right now. Black power.
Support this man, Black media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
Hey, I'm Antonique Smith.
Hey, I'm Arnaz J.
Hi, this is Cheryl Lee Ralph, and you are watching Roland Martin, Unfiltered. I mean, could it be any other way? Really? It's Roland Martin.
A Tennessee family demands answers after their loved one died days after a police interaction. 29-year-old Tyre Nichols was pulled over and arrested by Memphis police officers on January 7th. The family wants the body camera footage recorded during the traffic stop released to find out how Tyre's arrest landed him in the hospital, ultimately causing his death. Joining me now is the family attorney, Attorney Ben Crump, and members of Tyre Nichols' family, Rodney Wells, his stepfather, Jamal Dupree, his brother, and Kenya Dixon, his sister. Welcome, everyone.
How you doing?
Attorney Crump.
Good morning. Once again, it's a new year, but we still have the same struggles, Monique Presley, with Black people being killed inexplicably from a simple traffic stop. Nobody should die from a simple traffic stop. So when you hear the pain in Tyre Nichols' family, no, it's the pain that we all collectively feel in Black America when over and over again, for some reason, everybody can have de-escalation when it's other people, but when it's our people, it seems to be this notion that we're going to use the most, do the most, whether it's excessive force that leads to wrongful death like here in Tyree Sampson, or whether they put a knee on our neck, or whether they tase us to death, or they shoot us in the back. You just have seen it far too often now, already in 2023. And that's why we're going to make sure everybody in Memphis know that until we get justice for Tyre Nichols, there will be no peace.
What kind of information do we know so far, absent the video footage? What do we know about what happened, Attorney Crump?
You know, Kareem Ali has been working closely with Mr. Wells and Tyre's siblings and rest of their family. We know that it was multiple officers that had this encounter with Tyre, that Tyre was allegedly driving erratic, and that is all they've given us. They didn't say that he stole nothing, that anybody's life was in danger, or anything like that, and that Mr. Wells talked about he was close to his home, and they believe what was going on, and you can hear from them best, that Tyre was a good kid and that he was just scared, as many Black people are when the police pull them over. And so right now we know that everything that happened to Tyre should have been captured on body cam video, Monique Presley, or surveillance video. And if they don't have anything to hide, then why won't they release the video? You don't need to say no more. Just release the video. And I know Mr. Wells and Jamal and Kenyatta, they have been carrying the battle every day, saying, we're not going to let you sweep this under the rug. I know Kareem has been sending me interviews. He's been sending me news articles of how this family is saying that you picked the wrong family. We're not going to let you get away with murder of our son, our loved one. And when you hear them to describe Tyre, he seemed like he was just such a lovable, affable young man, and that he did not deserve this, Monique. And so the mayor has already said that they're going to be transparent. And I mean, the chief said they're going to be transparent. So now we just need your actions to mirror your words and make sure these videos are released and that this family is granted all their due process where they can get justice. I mean, I know from your previous panel, you had a lot of people there who have been on the streets demanding justice for our people. Now, this caravan for justice comes to Memphis, Tennessee, and the only thing on our mind right now is Tyre Nichols.
Well, I absolutely want to take some time to talk to the family, but I have one more question for you, Attorney Crump. But first, I want to read the statement from Chief Davis. He says, after reviewing various sources of information involving this incident, I have found that it is necessary to take immediate and appropriate action. Today, the department is serving notice to the officers involved of the impending administrative actions. We also have a statement from Mayor Jim Strickland, which says, while we must complete the investigation process, it is our top priority to ensure that swift justice is served. We want citizens to know that we are prepared to take immediate and appropriate actions based on what the findings determine. And I agree with you, Attorney Crump. Those are nice words. We'll see if they're followed with action. But what can you tell me first before I speak with Tyre's family? What can you tell me about the injuries at the point that he was taken to the hospital on January 7th?
You know, his family produced the photos of how battered and bruised he was. So you know it was more than what they let on. And Mr. Wells and the family can let you know what the police told them, Attorney Presley. They talked about using, pepper spray and this here. But when you look at his injuries to his face, you know it was far more done to him than just that. And now, Attorney Presley, you're one of the most brilliant attorneys I know, and we know that these autopsies they hide behind. They say that they got to wait for toxicology, and even though we know anytime they really want the toxicology report, they can get it in a matter of weeks, but they will try to let it string on for months at a time. And so me and my legal team, Kareem, Attorney Tony Ramanucci, and others, we're going to get an independent autopsy on behalf of the family so we will know definitively what happened to cause the death of Tyre Nichols.
Well, absolutely, Attorney Crump, and you know I don't have to tell you, having served on the other side, that while they're telling you that they can't get the report, they already have the report. I want to turn my attention, though, to Tyre's family and say first, we offer our condolences, and certainly our hearts go out to you all and to your extended family. This is not a situation that anyone wants to be in, and we send all of our prayer, our strength, and whatever efforts we can to you as you deal with this ordeal that no one should have to deal with. First, Mr. Wells, what is it that you could tell us about Tyre before we talk more about this incident? What can you tell us about your stepson?
First of all, he's the greatest kid that you could have as a stepson. When I met Tyre, which is basically 10 years ago, he embraced me like, I was his father immediately. There was no question. Great kid. He also worked with me. His employees loves him to death. You would not have no clue as to how many people showed up. We had a balloon release on Friday, and the whole second shift was out in the parking lot to release the balloons for Tyre because how much they cared for him. So he was very, very loved. He was not the kind of kid that would deserve this kind of treatment. He was not a street kid. I'm a street guy. I could deserve this, but not him. He don't live that life, you know. So he don't deserve nothing like that, and the whole family is heartbroken behind this tragedy, because this was a tragedy, something that should have never occurred under no circumstances. Even if he had a gun on him and he didn't point it at them, even if he had drugs on him, which he did not have, that don't deserve a death sentence. So that's the way the family feels about it, as far as I'm concerned.
And Jamal, do you have anything that you would like to share about your brother?
Yeah, just like Pops just said, like, Tyre wasn't built for the streets. Tyre was never for the streets, nothing like that. In an interview that I spoke to earlier, in an interview earlier, like I said, Tyre didn't follow trends like that. Tyre wasn't that type of kid. He wasn't that type of person. Like, he's never even gotten into a fight before, you know? So for them to have an altercation or whatever the case may be, you know, I just feel like my little brother was scared and he was just trying to get home to moms and pops right now. So,
and Ms. Dixon, anything that you would like to share about him, about your brother?
He was just my little brother, doing stuff that little brothers do. Never in a million years that I think I'd be wearing my brother's face on a T-shirt. He was just him. He was the life of the party. He loved the sunsets. He loved his camera. He captured my whole wedding. He was just, like I said, you can't really put it into words. He was just my little brother. He'll always be my little brother.
What information can you all share? Attorney Crump said that you have received or been in communication with the police. Is there one of you all who can share if there's anything else that you learned from those conversations?
None whatsoever. We have not been in communication with the police department, or no one else for that matter.
So have they not called to offer condolences? Nothing? You haven't had any communication from the mayor's office?
The investigators who took over the case called my wife a couple of times, but it was nothing like they was giving us information about the case. It was more of, we're investigating the case and it's going to be handled.
After whatever the incident was, the altercation that happened on the 7th, is there anything that you can tell us about the injuries that Tyre suffered and why you think it led to his death?
And Mr. Wells, if you can tell where it happened at, how in proximity to your home.
Okay, initially we were told that it happened off of Ross and Range where his car was. But after further investigation, we found out that it was literally steps from our house, around the corner, actually. He made it that far trying to get to the house. So as far as proximity, it was maybe I could walk here in about a half a minute from where our house is into where he actually got killed.
Okay, I have a follow-up question. You all stay put. We want to dig in a little bit further to this. We have to take a quick break. We will be back with more with his family and with his attorney Benjamin Crump. After this break, you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Be right back.
Most people think that these television shows that tell stories about who we are as black men, and then they paint these monolithic portraits of us. They think that they're being painted by white people. And I gotta tell you, there are a whole bunch of black folk that are the creators, the head writers, the directors of all of these shows, and that are still painting us as monoliths. The people don't really want to have this conversation.
No, they don't.
On
the next A Balanced Life with me, Dr. Jackie, listen to this. Good fortune happens when opportunity meets planning. In other words, success is no accident. Thomas Edison said that, and it's such a great message as we enter into this new year. Planning for success and balance in 2023, planning for it, and then how to live it.
I'm always working towards those goals. I'm always moving in that direction. And if something gets me off track for the goal, I hurry up and determine, oh, wait, you're off track. Get back over here on your track of what you're supposed to be doing, and I continue to work to those goals.
That's next on A Balanced Life with me, Dr. Jackie, here at Black Star Network.
We're all impacted by the culture, whether we know it or not. From politics to music and entertainment, it's a huge part of our lives, and we're going to talk about it every day right here on The Culture with me, Faraji Muhammad, only on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm BB Winans.
Hey, I'm Donnie Simpson.
What's up? I'm Lance Gross, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Before we left, we were talking to civil rights attorney Ben Crump and the family members of Tyre Nichols, who died after an encounter with Memphis, Tennessee police. He was arrested on January 7th and died days later. Attorney Crump, I am a little lost on the facts. From what we know, Tyre was pulled over and arrested on the 7th. He was pulled over, but then left the vehicle, fled the police. What happened? What do we know?
Yeah, as his family have articulated, and they can even give you more graphic detail than he was pulled over for erratic driving is what they allege, and then he ran after he pulled over. Nobody's claimed he sent them on a high-speed chase or anything. Pulled over, he just ran. His family believes he was afraid. Many black people are afraid when they get pulled over by the police. And then Attorney Presley, they apparently caught him and encountered him. They say an altercation took place. You got multiple police officers and this one young man, and he's not he doesn't weigh very much, so you question the amount of force they had to use on him. But one thing we know is that with the contusions and the abrasions on his face from the pictures of the family, you know that it was more than just, they said they pepper sprayed him, and they didn't talk about going hands-on on him. But you see the evidence of that, Monique Presley. I think it's best if we let Mr. Wells and his siblings talk a little bit about the details, because they've been on the ground and they've been looking at every aspect of it, along with Kareem Ali.
Cannot hear you.
You guys can't hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, now we can.
Okay. Do you know why they chased him?
Me personally, okay, so first they say he was driving recklessly or whatever, but then we've also heard that he just ran a stop sign, But anyways, he got pulled over somehow, some way that they ended up pulling him out the car. Now, why did they pull him out the car? I have no reason. I mean, he had license, he had registration, he has insurance, he doesn't have any warrants or nothing like that. Who knows? But at that point in time of him getting out the car, somebody had to threaten him. They had to threaten him to make him feel unsafe, And because Tyre never been in those type of situations, he doesn't know what to do besides, I need to get home. I need somebody to help me right now. You guys are not here to help me. You guys are here to hurt me. And that's my honest opinion. That's why my brother took off and came home. It's not like he was trying to, anybody else that's trying to flee on foot, they're trying to hide in different places and stuff like that. They running through people's houses and their backyards. Nothing. He traveled the same way he'll drive to get home, to get caught again not even 100 yards away from the house.
So they pulled him out of the car and were trying to detain him or arrest him there. He somehow managed to get away from them and he fled. And then after he fled, they caught up with him. Did they pepper spray him, or do you believe the assault happened at the first point when they pulled him out, or at the second point when they caught up with him?
I spoke with the officers on the scene, and they claimed that once he got out of the car, they pepper sprayed him and tased him. And they said he had the superhuman strength, and he got away from them. And that's when they chased him down. So this was their claim, that he had this superhuman strength. Now, mind you, my son is 6'3", maybe 140 pounds soaking wet. He has Crohn's disease. He won't get any bigger. He did not pose a threat to them to where they feared for their life, to where they had to take his life.
And so do we know whether there was more contact? They caught up with him and apprehended him, or did the injuries that they had already sustained, did that catch up with him?
In my opinion, he had got killed on the scene, and they took him to the hospital and put him on life support for cosmetic reasons.
Okay. You know, Attorney Crump, the reason why I'm asking these questions is because in every jurisdiction, it's not assumed that the police are just supposed to run after you if you don't pose a threat to yourself or others, if you don't have a weapon, if these things aren't present. Then I'm always asking these questions like, okay, he ran, but that doesn't mean you chase. So I was just wondering what we know yet. Has anyone received any information about street cameras or anything like that that may be available to give more information?
Yes, ma'am. We understand, Attorney Presley, that there are surveillance cameras that may have captured what actually transpired, and that's what we're employing them to do to build trust for the community. But I do want to underscore what Mr. Wells and Tyre's sister and brother have said previously about he was not a big kid, that he had no criminal history. I mean, this kid was so beloved in the Memphis community and the Bay Area of California that you have people marching in both cities saying justice for Tyre Nichols. He was a skateboarder. You got people out skateboarding for justice for Tyre Nichols. And so when you think about a person who everybody to a one said, no, he's not that type of kid. Not him. Other people who don't know Tyre, Attorney Presley, may say, oh, okay, well, the police narrative, it fits what happened, but not from the people who know him. They all are adamant that Tyre would have never attacked the police. If anything, he was scared because the police, were saying things to him, and that's what we want to see in that video. Who did what? Because they do not believe Tyre would have been on the offensive against the police. They never would have been in a life-threatening situation with Tyre Nichols. And that's why, if you want to shut us up, release the video.
Absolutely. Well, I want to thank you to the Tyre Nichols family for taking the time in the midst of your grief to share this information. And thank you, as always.
I wanted to share one more thing.
Go ahead.
Me and my son worked at FedEx, and FedEx went beyond what they could have done for Tyre and myself and my family. It's the largest corporation in Memphis. And he was so beloved there that it doesn't make sense. I mean, like I said, we had a balloon release. There was over 100 people out there for that celebration. So I want to give big thanks to FedEx for their support.
Well, thank you so much for that. We're glad that people are stepping up to help and to support, and we certainly will as well. I know you, Attorney Crump, will keep us posted if there's anything further that we need to know or anything that we can do. Thank you all so much.
Absolutely, Queen. Thank you.
All right, bye-bye. So, to my panel, you know what, Dr. Dibinga, Here's what I want to say, and I purposely waited until there was no family to say it, because I understand why they want to point out over and over again that Tyre was not that type of person. But to me, it doesn't matter what type of person was in that circumstance. What matters are the facts, and it's not supposed to matter what type of person you are if you were mistreated. And I think that is a continuation of the conversation we've been having throughout the show tonight, that we are not treated as people. So whether he was having an anxiety attack, whether he was going through a Crohn's incident, whether he was resisting the police, at the point that this man is running away, he's not a threat to y'all.
Absolutely, and this ties directly into what we were talking about earlier with the concept of thingification. Because when I heard the father say that they said he demonstrated some form of superhuman strength, I was like, that was it. We know exactly where this case is going to go. They started it from the beginning. This is the same thing of Darren Wilson, who killed Michael Brown, and Ferguson, who said that, oh my goodness, he was so big and he would look like Hulk Hogan, and I felt like I was a kid in a candy store, when they were the exact same height. This is what they do. And like you said, it doesn't matter if he was a two-time ex-felon. It doesn't matter if he was a college dropout. It doesn't matter. What matters is what they do and what they feel like they can do when they see us. And it doesn't matter how tall we are. It doesn't matter our age. It doesn't matter our gender. This is what thingification looks like. And it's just sad that this brother was taken from us. And if that chief really wants to be transparent, we shouldn't be talking about a video released 9 days later. And we talked earlier about the videos. And when I was talking about not releasing it, I was talking about more so the glorification of it. The constant spectacle, the way people make it seem like it's some type of promo for their shows. But I agree with what Rebecca was saying earlier before the break. We do need to see that. But it's also sad at the same time that because we are Black and because of the way we are thingified, unlike other groups, we actually need to see that and be re-traumatized all over again just to prove that we were right all along.
Absolutely, absolutely. And quickly, Rebecca, there's a difference between it being released to the public and the attorneys and family being able to see what happened. And to me, at a minimum, that should always be occurring as quickly as possible, because to add on to death with a lack of knowledge of how it happened or why it happened is unacceptable.
It's almost as if the law enforcement agency here is trying to remove all traces of human dignity from Tyre, and not to give his family the dignity and understanding and having closure of exactly what happened, assuming the body cam was on. Because sometimes we hear, oh, well, there was a malfunction on this brand new body cam. So I hope it's nothing like that. But what's interesting, even when you do have Black law enforcement and you do have a Black police chief, we still have to understand the anti-Blackness that's firmly in how law enforcement is done in this country. And so we still have to hold law enforcement accountable. We have to push this administration to push and figure out how to get rid of qualified immunity to make sure that victims of police violence are able to get justice.
Absolutely. 1 minute, Dr. Matthews, and then we got to close.
Okay, you know what? One thing that I did not hear is that, one, we have to educate our children on how to interact with the police. Because when I heard when they stated that the young man ran from the cops, basically, we got to teach our children, do not give these cops no type of excuse for a justified killing. Okay? That violates our human rights and also violates our humanity. And so clearly I did not hear none of that. And then on top of that, I don't trust nothing about none of them cops over there, because they all jackleg with that foolishness over there. And Ben Crump, me and him has worked on several cases. And I believe that he's going to get to the bottom of it with releasing that video, but they have to stay steadfast and they have to be vigilant, and accountability has to be had. But I'm going to leave y'all with this again. Train your children on how to interact with the police. Do not give these jackleg cops, these rogue cops, no type of reason to do a justified killing to our kids.
Right, and I hear you on that. I disagree strongly. I used to teach right here on this very show a segment called Know Your Rights and Stay Alive, and I thought too that there was a way that if you didn't look or if you did look, if you stared in the eyes, if you didn't reach for the glove compartment, if you didn't run, if you stayed, all of those things would matter, but unfortunately, they kill us anyway. What I am hoping, and I want to thank the panel for being here, Dr. Dibinga, Carruthers, and Dr. Matthews. We're out of time for today, but on MLK Day, offer service to all. Thank you for joining us on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. I'm not gonna say holla, I'll just say see you next time.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches. I'm real revolutionary right now. Black power.
Support this man, Black media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
We're all impacted by the culture, whether we know it or not. From politics to music and entertainment, it's a huge part of our lives, and we're going to talk about it every day right here on The Culture with me, Faraji Muhammad, only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Thank you.